Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, The Magickal Solution. My name is Lailani. We are live here on TikTok, I believe Instagram. Let me just double check with the Instagram situation because sometimes that be acting funny. I guess not, so we're gonna undo that. And of course, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Now, I am not in my normal place to do this. I am in my living room where it's nice and warm and cozy. My studio right now is super, super cold, and so we're doing it in the living room. So if you hear some clicking and clacking, that's going to be my dogs. That's going to be my husband in the kitchen doing his thing. That's going to be life, right? So, first of all, welcome back, you guys. Welcome back. We did it. It's 2025. This is the first book club that we are hosting in January of 2025. I'm really excited. However, we are still reading the same book from 2024 because it's a big guy. It's like a thick ass, it's like 400 pages. And we're already, I think, 160 pages in. So, that book that I'm referring to is the Harmonial Philosophy. It's a compendium of very famous spiritualist Andrew Jackson Davis. It's a compendium of all of his works. And we are currently on book number 4, chapter 4, which is Death. The book is Death and the Afterlife, and the chapter is entitled The Seven Spheres of the Spirit. Now, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, if you're stumbling upon me for the first time, what's up? My name is Lailani of the Magickal Solution. Now, when it comes to this book club, when it comes to the books that we are reading, I do my best to talk about the book, to explain the book, to bring up previous chapters and tie them back to previous chapters, etc., etc. So, for those people who are joining us for the first time who may not have read the previous chapters, can still be a part of it. And that's something that I try to make very accessible for everyone. So, with that said, let us share screen. Let's do it. Let's do it. Now, for those of you who are on TikTok, head on over to YouTube to actually see the screen and see what it is that I am reading. But I would still love you to stay here and hang out with me. I would appreciate it. All right, here we go. Let me go to the actual screen on my end as well. The Seven Spheres of Spirit. The structure of the universe and all of its living beauties, together with the divine essence that gives it life and animation, presents an indestructible basis of hope and faith, and a corresponding foundation of human action. It is a mirror in which we are reflected. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It is a mirror in which are reflected all corresponding beauties yet uncreated, but proved to be in embryo by the universal teachings of natural law. So remember, I don't if for those of you who have been with me in previous chapters, ooh, what is going on here? What just happened? Oh my god. Well, that was weird. Hello, Bendición Afro. Okay, I don't know what just happened with the situation here. Hopefully, can you guys see that? Are you guys able to see that in the screen? Let me know because I can't see it. I am not able to see it. Okay, so I see something here, but this does not look like the correct pages. So let me go back a little bit because I know what page we were on. This is really odd. My computer's never done this before, and I truly apologize. Wow. Okay. Let me see. What page is this? Okay. One more. Okay, here we are. Beautiful. All right, so let's give it some time to kind of load while I explain what we were just talking about. So, thank you so much for being patient. So, if you've been with me with previous chapters, when we talk about this thing of natural law and when we talk about this divine essence, um, there is essentially a plan. Okay. And that plan is not based on any, old guy in the sky or writing up a contract on how the universe and how humans and how everything works, but more about the plan that naturally rolls out due to the interactions of divine nature. And we say divine nature to emphasize the fact that nature is consciousness and that that consciousness is driven by spirit consciousness because it is one and the same. And so when nature has a cause and has an effect and it cycles that, it does so in such a way so as to progress things and to move things forward. And even if it looks destructive, even if it looks um like it's chaotic, the end result will be something that moves things forward, that progresses things, right? And that by natural law, it is sought after things of beauty, symmetry, um, goodness, love, etc., right? And that um, when those energies are in conjunction with natural law, when they flow together, what comes from it will be a progressive result and not a stagnant result, which can also be a possibility, right? And so in this particular case, they're talking about how this embryo of possibilities, if you will, is already written. That if we focus on this hope, faith, and the corresponding foundation of human action that is rooted in love and natural law, then we will have no choice but to have beautiful results, right? It's already part of that process. So that's what they're talking about here. The whole is as one body, and God, the soul and father of all living things and unliving things, everything is perfect in its way and state of being. Everything is necessary. Everything is pure, even celestial and divine. Everything teaches harmony and reciprocity by an unfailing manifestation of the same. Everything is of, in, through, and unto the divine mind. All things are part of him, as of one whole, even nature, man, and heaven. So that just sort of solidifies, that just sort of supports what I was just saying, that even things that are chaotic, even things that seem to be destructive by their nature are supposed to be unfailing manifestations of the role of harmony and reciprocity, right? So it really helps you to look at duality a lot differently. You're no longer seeing duality as opposites, but as co creators, as parts that play a very vital role in the movement and momentum and progression of all things. And therefore, all is divine, even though it is interpreted or even though it might look or appear or feel a certain way, right? Because again, all of those feelings and appearances that we're talking about, those are all filters in which we project upon what it is that we are observing. They aren't necessarily there, it's something that we filter our experience through. So it's once you see that these dualities as being perfect co-creators, harmonious, and those who assist each other in this process, then it doesn't look so black and white anymore. The Earth's first sphere constitutes the germ. The second sphere constitutes the roots. The third sphere is the body. The fourth sphere are the branches. The fifth are the buds. The sixth are the blossoms. And the seventh sphere is beauty, blooming with an immortal fragrance. Can I just say that I love this analogy so much that he puts here? Like, this is so beautiful. So, like, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but like my business, The Magickal Solution, the spirits that I work with, the energies that I give and work with, especially when it comes to my students and my mentees, are very much symbolized by this idea of flowers and blooming and growth and things like that. So to have this metaphor where he compares the seven sort of celestial bodies of the spirit and he compares it to a flower or something that is blooming, that is just beautiful. Do you hear my dogs? Do you hear them? Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Come on, guys, chill out. They don't really like each other, so when they get too close to each other, they just start acting funny. So let's get to it. All right. So here is the tree of righteousness, wherein nothing is wrong. It is the tree of goodness, because nothing is evil. It is the tree of immortal life, because there is no death. It is the tree of divine perfection, because nothing is imperfect. It is the tree of truth, because there is no falsehood in the divine creations. It is the tree of eternal causation, because there is nothing which was not previously in another form. It is the tree of love and wisdom, because there is no confusion or disunity. All things are working together for good, which is the elevation that all is low and undeveloped to a high degree of refinement, from which a universe yet unborn will be ushered into being. Ooh, Andrew Jackson Davis, you are a poet. Listen to you. Now, the first sphere is that of the natural world, the habitable earths of the planets, the circle of manifested things. The second, or spiritual sphere, contains all the beauties of the first, combined and perfected. Every earth is therefore an index and introduction to the beauty and grandeur existing in the second sphere. From the natural is the spiritual unfolded or made manifest. The surface of the second sphere presents regular undulations and great fertile plains. Therein reigns therein reigns the most perfect order. It is a place of gardens, typical of purity, unity, and celestial love. All flowers and leaves are so many voices proclaiming the beauty of interior perfection and the infinite source from which they sprang. Clear and placid rivers flow through these gardens, and therein also are exemplified the ceaseless flowings of love and wisdom, the light and life of all created things. There are also groves of the most charming and enchanting characters, and it is impossible to behold these and not be impressed with new and beautiful thoughts. So they're talking about the spiritual self, right? The first sphere was the natural body, and it's all beauty. It's the beauty and perfection of nature. In the second sphere, there are three distinct societies of men and women, each occupying a position determined by their degree of cultivation, sympathy for one another, and power of approaching each other's sphere of knowledge and attainment. The first is in love, the second is in will, and the third is in wisdom. These societies are composed of families, groups, and associations, but all are as one brotherhood. Their numbers transcend computation. Most of the inhabitants of Mercury, Venus, and Earth, and Mars are dwelling in the first society of the second sphere. Those of other planets occupy higher positions in the planes of thought and wisdom. A holy quietness pervades the whole spirit world, and there is happiness of the most inexpressible character. Ecstasies, exaltations, glorifications, ascending continuously. Such is the second sphere of human existence. The relation between it and the earth may be perceived by the similitude of external manifestations, these differing only in degrees of purity and development. Oof. It is proper and advantageous that the human race should know and appreciate these truths, that they may be induced to press onward and upward in the ascending scale of progress toward the great fount of love and happiness. Insomuch as on the various earths there are born several millions of spirits in 1 second of time, from which fact there must follow a necessity of many deaths, so an equal number are being introduced at every second into the spiritual sphere. In like in like manner, there is an equal rate of transition from the second sphere into the third, which is the celestial sphere. So in the first sphere, we are explained that it is of the natural, right? It is the basic biology of the human, the spirit, and we can liken it to the basic biology and fundamentals of Earth itself. In the second sphere, we see the beauty that all of that biology of the first sphere discusses, and we add to it the perfection of that beauty, right? And so the second sphere becomes an opportunity for the spirit itself to indulge in the beauties of nature, and to move in a progressive way to continue to seek such beauties, right? Now we enter this third sphere, which they call the celestial sphere. But the darkness incident thereunto is light, and the death is life inconceivable. A transition contemplated with delight that surpasses all human speech. So in this sphere, also, there are three distinct societies corresponding to perfected love, perfected wisdom, and celestial purity, right? So we had those three spheres in the second realm as well, right? We had love, we had wisdom. We had love, will, and wisdom. Here we have love, wisdom, and purity, right? A perfected version of that. So the first society is composed of those whose last stage of being was in the third society of the sphere below. Okay, so you have sphere one, which just is your basic. Then you have sphere two, which has 3 levels. And in order to transition into sphere three, you have to go through those 3 levels of love, will, and wisdom. Then you go into sphere three, which is supposed to represent the perfection of both sphere two and sphere one, right? Because everything is building upon each other. It's not like you go to sphere three and forget about everything else. Everything is built on everything else. That is the whole point of progression, is to build upon, right? Now, they have love, will, and wisdom combined to a degree of perfection. Let me get to the next page. That surpasses earthly thought. Those of the second sphere are still more advanced and so perfectly conjoined with one another that it requires a high degree of discernment to make a distinction between them. And those of the third society are so exceedingly pure that subordinate spirits are repelled with an innate consciousness of non association. They are guardian angels to those below them. To one another, they impart knowledge and express love, and as the sun imparts life and beauty to forms on earth. But the nature of this sphere is entirely above the comprehension of the human race here and now, and what has been said concerning it is but a particle compared to with all that is and shall remain untold. Now, in the fourth supernatural sphere, the inhabitants are of the most exquisite purity and loveliness, and with one united voice, not of speech, but of action. They proclaim glory, honor, immortality, eternal life. As they proceed toward the city of the living God, they illuminate the vestibule of truth and the archway leading thereunto. They penetrate all below. They call on all to come away and ascend with them to the fount of purity on high. In this sphere also, 3 societies and 3 distinct degrees of love, will, and wisdom exist, each association being unfolded from that immediately below. Now, view from this exalted realm, the dwellers in the third sphere appear as beings undeveloped. The first society is almost infinite in numbers, and from them flows spontaneously an element of love that is clearer than clearest waters, brighter than the brightest crystals. Its reflection clothes the higher societies with a garment of whiteness, pure as the jewels that adorn the crown of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. From the second society flows a constant stream of passive and active will, subject at all times to life giving promptings of love and receiving the high probations of wisdom. This is constantly ascending and descending. It is also like a great receptacle in which are deposited the choicest thoughts and memories of the angels and the spirits of this exalted sphere. Again, it is like a treasury, the contents of which are open to the lower angels, who extract beautiful thoughts from its depths and meditate thereupon. The atmosphere of this spirit home is clothed with resplendent brightness, such as reflects the goodness of all things and the use to which they are applied. It is a mirror in which are represented the living beauties of heaven and earth. Such is the loveliness, goodness, and wisdom of the divine mind, that nothing is made in vain, but everything is a living thought representative of perfect wisdom. Now, in the supernatural sphere, this truth is especially manifested. Insomuch as life is universal, death cannot mar the constitution of things. By virtue hereof, the dwellers in the fourth sphere, like those of others, remain for a moment in silence and awake as beings of the fifth or super spiritual sphere. The spirits here are so lovely and attractive that it requires an effort to prevent being. As it were, absorbed into the becoming part of them. Now, as in the third and fourth spheres, the first society is a child of that which is highest in the sphere below. Love appears as the perfection of wisdom, which wisdom is greater than all the combined love and wisdom described heretofore. As the spheres approach the divine mind, they become more simple, more unassuming, more pure. So also, nearer that they draw to the fount of purity, the more transparent they become, and the more do their inhabitants appear to exist, as it were, without external and artificial habiliments. Habiliments. There is an exhalation from each society which forms a halo of glory, surpassing all brightness of the material sun, or any brilliance that illuminates the material universe. Each spirit seems so pure, and the thoughts of all are so celestial, that it is almost impossible to resist the attraction thus presented. There is such a commingling of thoughts, and such an affection manifested one for another, as seems beyond all captivations imaginable. Every mind is like an opening flower, and every thought is like the fragrance thereof. Their wisdom is as the fountains of heaven, which flow to all that thirst, which heal all that are wounded, and cleanse all that are not purified. This wisdom is in every thought and movement, in every expression of will and love. But the fifth sphere is allied so closely to the spiritual sun that it is incomprehensible to dwellers on earth. And by the same manner of transition which obtains below the spirits of the fifth, ascend to the sixth sphere or supercelestial habitation. It is the great ultimate of beauty and the crown of loveliness and purity, all goodness and all refinement. Here are the fields of paradise, and here is erected the house of many mansions. Its exterior beauty, grandeur, and magnificence show that it was not made by hands, but is eternal in the heavens. It is that asylum where all are taken in, loved, and breathed upon, and made perfect. Every created spirit is invited to this home by the progressive law of the Father. In this super celestial sphere are all the beauties of earth and heaven combined, developed, and perfected. It is thus removed from human comprehension. Here, spirits and angels rejoice with exceeding joy and thanksgiving, but by action and not by speech, by wisdom, not by love. Still, love is the all animating and life giving element. Interesting, huh? Now, the seventh sphere, we're on the last sphere now. The seventh sphere is the infinite vortex of love and wisdom and the great spiritual sun of the divine mind, which illuminates the spiritual worlds of the body and constitution of the material sun. The univercolum was brought into being. From this constitution of the spiritual sun, all the heavens were created, and by it they are sustained, purified, and illuminated. Every spontaneous breath of light and of love is as a smile of the all pervading Father and Creator. Thus, the spiritual spheres are allied to the spiritual sun. Now, if you guys remember the spiritual sun, right? So, like, he is referring to, so what Andrew Jackson Davis is referring to here in the previous chapters, we talked about nature, but we talked about nature from this perspective of Andrew Davis Jackson literally recounting, okay, sort of going to different planets, essentially. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, he straight up was like, "Yep, I've been to Saturn, I went to Uranus, Neptune, and I met these spirits that are on these planets, and they were like this, and they eat this, and they do this," and, like, he broke down each of them, right? And when he spoke about the sun, he not only spoke about the sun as a celestial planet, but as a spiritual entity in the sky. So to Andrew Jackson Davis, these aren't just planets, these are spiritual bodies that constitute our universe and make up our universe. And there are infinite numbers of these multiverses that are made up of these spiritual bodies that are essentially represented by these planets, etc., and that are hosted by a larger spiritual sort of Hubble, which would be the sun, the spiritual sun. And so he likens that and compares that also to the physical body and the spiritual body and what our spiritual composition is made out of. And so he talks about the seven spiritual bodies, and then when we die, he then again, as we are seeing, he is likening the various realms from which we can enter and which we can progress through, because the earth that we are on is only one realm that we are progressing through. It's only one sphere. We're on the what he would consider the first sphere. We're still in that germinating state. We are still very much bound by natural law, material law, etc., etc. So it's very gritty, it's very dirty, it's very rough here, right? But by following these natural laws, we progress and we transition out of it through the cycle of death, and our spiritual bodies become lighter and lighter and lighter, more pure, more translucent, more beautiful and purified, etc., etc., as we move through. And so he's explaining these seven stages that even within them have three stages, right? So we have the first stage that has three stages, we have the second stage that has three stages, we have, so it's not just we go through these seven things and boom, we are, you know, angelic perfect creatures. No, we still go through levels within those stages to continue to progress. So this is a cycle that goes on infinitely until our soul has been completely purged of anything that would keep us from, ultimate love, will, wisdom, purity, right? So just keep that in mind when I'm saying the word spiritual sun. It has layers. It's an actual star, right, at the center of our universe. It's a spirit body that is housed in this star at the center of our universe. And that spirit body essentially, is the Hubble, but it is also something that exists inside each and every one of us. And that is how we tap into the purity that exists. And that's how we naturally, by our own nature, abide by the law of progression. It is because that spiritual sun exists within us and it is seeking unification with itself. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let me get back to reading. So thus the spiritual spheres are allied to the spiritual sun, and the natural spheres to the sun, which is material. The spiritual is as a soul, and yet a garment to the natural, while the two are joined together as one creation. The spiritual sun is an inexhaustible vortex of life and light, which are love, and of order and form, which are wisdom. Everything is breathed into being thereby. The great center is the habitation and throne of the divine mind, that central positive power of the universe. I think this is the end of this chapter, but I want to make sure that I go back to read the footnotes with you guys because that's also important to help understand things. Nope, we're still going. Okay. So the diagram below illustrates the text will furnish a concrete notion of the seven spheres. Let the reader imagine that he is looking on the plane of an immense globe divided through the center like an apple cut into halves. The dark margin is the ocean of unorganized. Let's see what it says here. I'll go back to the picture in a second. So the dark part is. Come on. Of an unorganized group in the first circle. And at the right hand and near the bottom of the diagram, now in the center of all is the seat of intelligence, the fountain of love and wisdom, the divine sun, which encircles this sensorium and gives off emanations of life and light, which energize the whole system of the universe. It attracts spirit and repels matter according to that law by which rare and dense substances are governed. Experiencing the divine attraction in harmony with this law, human spirits leave Earth at death and go to the second sphere. Okay, so let's go back to the picture and then I'll continue reading. Okay, so here we go. So the sensorium, the spiritual sun, the divine mind, all of that is in the center. All of that is emanating out. It is the habitation of God, right? So we are all the way out here. You see where these little dashes are that are just kind of circling around the second sphere? That is where we are. Okay. And when we die, we will then go into that second sphere to then go through the three phases of progression. And then after we die, having been in the third phase of the second sphere, we then go into the third sphere, so on and so forth. And as you can see, each sphere moves closer and closer and closer to the center. So by the time we get to the fifth and sixth sphere, you're already talking about highly, highly elevated spirits, angelic spirits, spirits of pure divinity, who we as earthly creatures can't even conceptualize. In our mythologies, they might be called gods, they might be called archangels. In some of our new age literature, they might be called aliens. Whatever your definition for them are, this is the sphere in which they most likely exist in based on the characteristics we have given them in our mythologies. Okay. but they are essentially spheres that we can attain and strive towards by the law of progression. Okay, let me get back here. Okay. So, after many centuries, they have progressed sufficiently to ascend into the third sphere. But the central attraction continues to draw lovingly and tenderly until the spirits of all men reach the sixth sphere, which is the closest possible approach to the spiritual sun of the univercalum. The seven spheres of the spirit are the tree whose foundation rests in the depths of time and whose top extends to the heights of eternity. It puts forth branches throughout the length and breadth of the universe, casting a refreshing shade over those labyrinths of space whose limits no thought can define. The root or germ of this tree is the first sphere, which comprehends all earths and their inhabitants. Knowing this, let everyone strive diligently to cultivate the germ and make its unfoldings perfect, to give its properties and essences a truthful direction, to put forth love, energy, and wisdom for the realization of that which is most desirable, being the development of those principles found in the nature of man and prompting him to profitable action. The keynote of all is unity, and unity is happiness. In view of these things, the truth and importance are manifested of that saying, according to which, quote, the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal, unquote. So, also, the things that are visible are terrestrial, while the things that are invisible are heavenly. While these truths present themselves in bold relief, the human mind should put forth efforts to comprehend their meaning and their importance. It will be discovered in doing so that the mind must be refined and perfected. When this is accomplished, the social world will be elevated to honor, goodness, and universal peace. Ooh, damn. Andrew Jackson Davis. He just schooled the shit out of everybody in this chapter by explaining the potentialities, by explaining the law of progression in this way. He is showing essentially that like we have no choice. We have no choice in the matter. When it comes to the law of progression, we are either moving forward or we appear to be stagnant, but it's really just really slow moving forward. Because at the end of the day, all actions, everything, again, no matter how chaotic, no matter how fucked up it might appear, no matter how backwards it might seem, it still plays the role of progression, even if it's very slow. Even if learning something the hard way is the only way in some circumstances, right? However, the shortcut in this is if we move with intention, we move um with purification in mind. We move with refinement in mind. We move with wisdom and willpower and love in mind and in our action. That is according to this, testament here. That is the shortcut. That is what will allow us to exit out of this sphere into the next sphere. But at the end of the day, this concept of samsara, it's here, man. It's this is that's the law essentially. And we can look at it as different levels that we are trying to enter, or we can look at it as a spiral, or we can look at it as just a perpetual, wheel that we are just running in. Whatever you want to look at it as, there are phases, there are degrees of purification, purging, refinement, and the earth is only in that first level. So, people, it's funny. I don't know, I find it to be weird as someone who like is trying my best to figure my own shit out while helping others figure out their shit. It always kind of blows my mind when I hear people say, like that they are a guru, or that they are, a wise man, or like they are just as holy as like the Dalai Lama or whatever. Because it's just like, if you were, you wouldn't be here. Does that make sense? Like, according to this philosophy, like if you were, you wouldn't be here, because the level of purity and refinement, the level of love and goodness, the level of willpower that you exert and action that you exert in your life, all of that would have purified you so much that upon your death, you would move into that, you wouldn't return. You wouldn't be who you are. Now, you can be as perfect as you can be for this realm, for this sphere, whatever that perfection looks like for this sphere. And as we read in the chapter, that was more about sorry, let me stop sharing really quick so you guys can actually see my face. um hi Dulce. But as and what that looked like according to the text was essentially beauty, refinement of thought and action, moving in faith, hope, love, and charity. All of that defined what this first sphere is supposed to be, and how we're supposed to perfect that. And once we do that, then we can go into this. So if you haven't done any of that, you're just going to keep coming back over and over and over and over again, right? Like that's like essentially what he is saying here. So yeah, that was a really, really good chapter. I enjoyed it very, very much. So now let's open up the forum for some questions. Hi, Dulce. Hi, Lavetta. Hi, Omira. Hello, hello. Hi, Val. Hi, everybody. Hi, Julian. So now we can open up to questions. Now, if you don't have questions specifically about this specific chapter, that's okay. This is still a forum to open up to questions of the spiritual nature, specifically of spiritualism, specifically of, you know, this idea of what happens to us after we die, because that's essentially what the topic is, right? Um, so yeah, the floor is yours. The floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you. You didn't miss too much. You didn't miss too much. It's all on the YouTube. So if you ever want to just binge watch any of the stuff, it's all there on the YouTube. All right. Well, then, if there are no questions, I want to give you guys a lot of love, some hugs, and some kisses for hanging out with me during our little book club. I can't guarantee that we're going to do it the same day every single week, but we are going to do it every week. And so just keep an eye out on my socials for when I advertise for it. Um, but I also want to just give out my love and my heart to those who are kind of going through a lot right now, especially since the inauguration. I know people are filled with a lot of anxiety, a lot of sadness, a lot of overwhelming thoughts, and a lot of fear. And I understand it. And I just want to let you know that I'm an open ear and I care about you guys. And if you need to talk or if you need to vent, you know my email, you know the website. You can always go and leave a contact form. Cleo, what's up, girl? You didn't come to my misa last Sunday. You said you was coming. I was waiting on you. Don't worry. You can come next time. You can come next time. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. You guys are not alone. So reach out if you need me, okay? Um, but again, thank you guys so much. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all of my socials at The Magickal Solution. You can literally find me anywhere at The Magickal Solution. But most importantly, check out my website, www.themagicalsolution.com. Sign up for my newsletter to get yourself some freebies, some downloads, to be one of the first to read my blog before it goes live, etc. Thank you guys so much. Much love. My name is Lailani. This is The Magickal Solution, and this is how we grow.